I'm fine. How are you?
I'm well. I'm glad you met me today, and I'd like to ask you some questions if possible. And you asked me what questions you would like based off of recent events and what's occurring in America.
Okay.
So, Ms. Parker, what is your overall perception of the Fayetteville Police Department, and how does that relate to your view of policing in America? Are we better or worse?
Well, my view of policing in America, it's a little positive and it's also negative, because if you look at it at a historical standpoint, it started in regards of mastering and overlooking slave runners, right? So that's where policing had started. So with that history, it kind of trickled down in other communities, but I realized in Fayetteville, that historical stance isn't present. I realized the Fayetteville police, I would say, is better based off my experiences of living in Western Kentucky and being in St. Louis and Memphis. It's totally different. A whole lot better, definitely. There's more of an understanding. You're not getting pulled over for just the color of your skin. You're not being pulled over just because it's almost the end of the month and quota needs to be met. So it's definitely better.
I'm really glad to hear that. Really
Yes. I do want to ask you though, so when we had protested here that Monday, what was it that made the tensions change?
I think when the group reached Ray and Moore, and they wanted to continue to the downtown area, and we were blocking you guys from making that route and trying to turn you around. I believe that's when it started getting a little tense,
Okay.
especially when they brought the leader out, ended up arresting him. That I had a lot of concerns at that moment. I think that's when the energy in the crowd changed, if you will, and we became extremely concerned.
Okay.
So, you shared with me that you've been doing this for 7 years, and this is all you ever wanted. What did that moment mean to you, both the kneeling and you and I embracing?
So in my 7 years of activism, that was very earth-shattering. Just thinking about it now, I'm really passionate of what I do. So to have officers in that moment have genuine tears and talk to us, maybe they weren't supposed to talk to us, and just show us that they were there for us and that they cared. And for you to come out to me, it meant a lot, because going in Ferguson, they have a lot of trauma. And with that trauma, in that moment, it made me realize we are stopping history from repeating itself. So it was just really honest, it was really raw. And I'm glad I got to finally experience that in the 7 years of being an activist.
Well, I know in the conversations you and I had prior to filming, you had mentioned that you received a lot of flack and criticism for kneeling, and I expressed to you, on the reverse, so had we. What type of resistance or criticism did you receive? And I'd like to kind of discuss ours as well.
I'm a cop lover. I'm not really standing for the cause. I've backpedaled. And, I tell people, if you weren't in that moment, then you will not know why I kneeled with you guys. You would not know why I kneeled with the Fayetteville Police Department. You would not know why I hugged Lieutenant Petty. You would not know or understand. Because again, people are just now, I don't want to say just now, but people are really, their feelings have heightened. My feelings have been heightened for years. So in that moment, it was real for me. In the air, it was real. Like I had spoke about, like even in my video, there was even that moment of pause where I was like, whoa, wait a minute. But I could see we weren't going to be like the other cities where we would be beaten for kneeling. And so that's where I tell people, like, you had to be in that moment. That doesn't change how I feel about other cities, but the city that I'm currently living in, the love is there.
And the reverse to that on our side is that, you know, we've received criticism that we were being submissive.
Yeah.
That we were somehow bowing to protest. And I can tell you genuinely that that's not how we looked at it. We knelt to show solidarity with the community.
Yes.
And that we want the same things, that we want the unity, that we want to be able to do our jobs, keep the community safe, and still have your support.
Yes.
So it's a tragedy that both of us trying to make things better
Yes.
Receive that type of criticism. So.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't a moment of being pacified. It was a really raw moment. And I hate that other cities cannot experience that.
Sure.
Yeah. I do want to ask you, on that day, was I easier to approach than a black male? What did you feel in that moment to come hug me?
You know, whether you were a male, a female, black, white, Asian, that to me that's irrelevant. I watched you for a good minute or so, and I could tell that your emotions, the outpouring, that you were genuine. And you know, as I spoke to you earlier, you never know what an individual has gone through in their lives to formulate the opinions and the viewpoints that they have. And I just felt compelled to come to you. I'm not a hugger, so, but it was that moment that I realized, you know what, we all want the same thing. And I had to come and at least speak to you, and to make sure that you knew that we don't want to be placed in a box no more than you do, and that not agency is created equal. There are some that are better than others. There are a lot that are better than others. And you know, what happened 1,000 miles away to impact us like it did here was very disheartening for us, and very frustrating, especially given the efforts we put into the community to bridge those gaps. So I don't know, I wanted to come to you and say it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
We're going to get through this together. So that was kind of my purpose, and it doesn't make a difference if you were male or female. Ms. Parker, so what steps can the FPD do to improve our relationship with the community while still ensuring law and order are maintained?
I would say continue with the 8 can't wait. We talked about this. That is, you know, de-escalations, using all possible methods first before resorting to guns. There is one that I feel like should be mentioned that's not in the 8 can't wait, and that's something I realized here is the military enforcement. The military enforcement, and then when not many officers are needed for the moment, when they come pull up, speeding up with their lights on, that's intimidating. And that also is a trigger for the community, because we're going to assume, okay, they're going to arrest us, they're going to hurt us. Like when we were protesting on the corner of Cliffdale and Raleigh Road on a Tuesday night, they were kids. And so for us to have all those police officers and lieutenants pull up, it was intimidating. And then when the military came by, it was even more intimidating. And it's like, where was this, you know, when there was bigger crowds? So it's moments like that where do you really need 10 people for one body? And that right there in itself is something that can be improved. Continuing to be open and honest. I feel like with what we did Monday, with the conversations like me and you had, like the conversations me and some of the officers had, if we continue to do that with each other, I feel like, let me see. I just feel like if we keep that communication, we'll be fine, because communication is key.
Well, as you know, the list of 8, as you and I spoke earlier, you know, the Fayetteville Police Department probably implements already 90 to 95% of what's in that list.
And that's wonderful.
I think it's important for you and others to understand the amount of training and what we've done at the police department here throughout this process of trying to bridge those gaps and improve our relationship. All of our officers have been through de-escalation training, and we teach them and impress upon them that, hey, utilize force only when it's absolutely necessary. Slow the situation down. Try to de-escalate it, calm it down so that we don't have to utilize force. And the first year after implementing that, I was over the internal affairs section. We went from, I believe it was 126 use of force incidents for a year down to 52, just by implementing de-escalation training. We also we put our officers through crisis intervention training, dealing with people with cognitive disabilities and who may have some mental impairments. We go through minority and juvenile sensitivity training to understand their perceptions. You know, so we've put a lot of time and effort into not only changing the appearance of our agency, but the culture of our agency. We added a sanctity of life statement to our use of force policies. We've voluntarily gone through the collaborative reform process. We had the DOJ come in and check us out and make sure that we were doing what we were doing and were adhering to industry standards. So we've done a lot of those things. And as I impressed upon you earlier today, it's important for that communication to stay open. It's also important, I feel, for members of the community to understand why we do some of the things we do. And I've encouraged you to join our Citizens Police Academy so that you see our operations, you see our tactics, you get an opportunity to ask any questions after seeing those things that you may want. And as I expressed earlier, I feel like we do an outstanding job at reaching out and communicating with our school-age children and our middle-aged to senior members of the community. But there's a segment, which that kind of goes to one of your next questions, I believe, that I feel like we could do a little bit better job at, and that's college age to young adult. I think we need to figure out a way to bridge those gaps, but I appreciate what you said.
Yes, and then my question comes from actually getting with some of the people my age, a little bit younger than me, of the community who's been in Fayetteville, who's been born and raised. So that question actually didn't just come from me, that came from the community and my age group.
That's outstanding. Well, you talk about transparency.
Yeah.
And you talk about, one of the biggest things I think an agency needs to do is admit if they've made a mistake.
Yeah.
We're human beings, we make decisions during dynamic situations, and sometimes we don't get it right. So admitting that mistake and communicating that and having that line of communication with the community, I think goes a long way.
Yes. So, Lieutenant Petty, what are you willing to do to improve the public trust in law enforcement for Black citizens in particular?
I can tell you, me personally, anything it takes, as long as it's morally and ethically allowable. We don't shy away from, as an agency, we don't shy away from new challenges, and I welcome the opportunity, as well as the rest of this agency, to come up with new ideas and to be inventive in ways to bridge that gap and have that trust, and to try and understand each other's perspective. I myself in my career have participated in multiple community forums, community town hall meetings, given the public the opportunity to voice their opinion and ask those questions. As we discussed earlier, I'm a graduate of Fayetteville State University. It's been a little bit, but I used to come back and speak with groups of students coming up through who may want to seek a career in law enforcement or who may not. Just to give them opportunity to ask those questions and have that communication. Once you get to know someone on a personal level, whether you agree with them or disagree with them, it's hard to dislike them.
Yeah.
So, really to answer your question, and I feel reasonably sure that I can speak for the entire agency, anything it takes.
Good.
So how can the community and the Fayetteville Police Department, as a partnership, move forward to ensure each other's voices are heard?
I feel with my age group, there needs to be, like we discussed, there needs to be more reach out, more community events, more so in the communities that need it, more awareness, more involvement. I feel like in the different sections of Fayetteville, we should know your names. I've been a citizen of Fayetteville for 2 years now. There's no reason that I should know some officers and lieutenants by name and citizens who have been here their whole lives not know you guys by name. I feel like for a community and for us to continue that open honesty and trust, that we should know you guys by name. And people should be able to come up to you and be like, hey, Lieutenant Petty, how are you today? Or Lieutenant Petty, this is what's going on. We should be able to address you guys by name. I understand this isn't a small community by far, but the lieutenants in the area, maybe a few officers, I feel like that alone, not even just knowing your names, but you'll get to know the community more. You get to know of what's going on in this community over in Hope Mills area, what's going over towards like Spring Lake area. Of course, with me being newer, I don't know like the exact districts, but you get what I'm saying, right?
I do.
Also with like posting about the meetings for my age group so we can get involved with you guys. Like you told me about the Citizen Academy. That's something I never heard of. There's some very wonderful Black young leaders that I have met that would also benefit from that. And if we're just more vocal, and like you said, my age group is more in the social media era, if we have more marketing and PR towards that, so my age group can get involved. Because if we don't know it openly, how are we supposed to know it at all?
Sure.
Also feel like maybe I've missed it while living here. Just doing more drives, just doing more community work, because the more we are working together as a community and showing people we can do XYZ as a community, like we can fund X amount of dollars to the homeless. We can help X amount of homeless people find jobs and homes. Just showing that we can do so much as a community together can show that we can progress and we can overcome the historical stance of what we have been going through as people.
Well, what you've just said to me is a bit disheartening, because you've just described the foundation of community policing.
Yeah.
Knowing the police in your community, and we practice that. Now there are agencies that claim community policing efforts, but at the root foundation of what it means, they don't really practice it. And this only solidifies in my mind what we discussed earlier, that we could probably do a better job of reaching out to a certain segment of our community that I think we're lacking right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to say your age on camera, but you're within that group. And everything you've described, we already do.
Mm-hmm.
We're just not reaching you.
Exactly.
You know, we do the let me tell you, we work every weekend. I'm just going to these events, going to these reentry programs for people coming out of prison. I personally have served food for the homeless and participated in food drives and food banks, and attended these NAACP meetings, ACO meetings when we're developing body-worn camera programs. So everything you've described we already do, but it's obvious that we're failing at getting that message to you.
Yes.
And again, it only solidifies in my mind that my thought process is correct, and we need to. Yeah, we need to change our tactics and how we're reaching a certain segment.
And I'll say the age group, it's the ending of millennials and early Generation Z. I'm a millennial. My sister, who's younger than me, is Generation Z. It's that generation that's missing the gap. And we're the ones right now in the streets, we're the ones on social media trying to make that change. And if that gets to us, can you only imagine how more empowered we will be, how more, we can educate our elders and those below us, and how we can continue that greatness.
Thank you. Thank you. So let me ask you, in your opinion, because we utilize social media, we utilize Facebook, which I know your generation probably doesn't have a lot to do with. We utilize Twitter, all the different platforms. How do we get that message to you guys? How do we bridge that gap of communication and reach that audience? And how receptive would they be to join us at the table?
I feel like it takes part of knowing your community. So like with Monday and Tuesday, when some of you all had talked to us, letting us know like, hey, we have this going on. Please come out. With social media, I am on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm on all of that, right?
Have you liked our page?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Have I followed you guys on Twitter? No, I go in there. It's the same as Facebook. But I feel like there needs to be more intriguing marketing. I see more of the 9 p.m. routine, which I'm thankful for. I see more of the 9 p.m. routine and most wanted, those who have been arrested, and like a few reports. While living here, I haven't really seen like, hey, here's this flyer. Come out and do this, something to really engage us, because visuals are everything. And like I said, visuals are everything, and everything is more digital now. Pictures are still worth 1,000 words. And so just that alone, having that better marketing on the social media and getting with your youth that are the real up and coming Black young leaders, that you see leading the protest, that you see talking on camera, that you see reaching out, letting them know as well, because they're part of they're that middle ground in your community to your elders and to your youth. So that's what I feel like would better help.
It sounds like we need to hire you.
I mean, hey.
I'm going to call you Courtney, if that's okay.
Yes.
Instead of Miss Parker and Lieutenant Petty, I'm Mike.
Okay, Mike.
We're now Courtney and Mike, but I really appreciate you coming and sitting with me today. And I hope that you and I together with our agency can impact our community for the better.
Definitely. I look forward to the future. And like I was telling you earlier, I feel like my job here in Fayetteville is not done. I've been doing this for years, and I'll continue to do this. Fayetteville is a beautiful city. I've met some beautiful individuals, especially some young leaders that I really want to invest time in to see them grow. So I can't wait to see what we do.
Well, I look forward to the future.
Of course.